How do you feel about your being, the way you are created, the way you are shaped, the melanin of your skin, the shape of your body is a fetish for someone else?
I am a beautiful woman. I am a beautiful Black woman. And I don't feel like there's anything wrong with anyone telling you that. They have fantasies that are race play fantasies.
That I was going to get to that. Now go right ahead because that's where I was going.
Don't forget to hit subscribe. This episode will help you understand better fantasies and fetishes and help you communicate your sexual desires better with our special guest today, Kwana OGD Lewis, practicing Dom.
It is certainly the month of love and the month of where people tend to get together, hook up, and have all sorts of situationships. One of the challenges for people of color or minority communities in general, not just people of color, but all minority communities, is the challenge of knowing whether or not the person we are dating or dating us for who we are as a person for genuine interest, or whether they're dating us because we are some type of fantasy for that person. And distinguishing the two can sometimes become a little bit gray. So the question we ask is, how can I tell if I'm a fantasy or if I'm somebody's fetish? Today, we're excited to have Kawana OJD Lewis joining us back on the virtual couch. Kawana, it's always great to have you on this couch, and we are going to lean into you today because we want to learn as much as we can about fetishes, what really is a fetish. Let's even start there because I think for a lot of people, we kind of have a kind of gray view as to what a fetish is. But we want you to help us understand a little bit more about this. First of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm really excited about the new year. I'm excited to share like a lot of new things. So I'm doing really good. Really, really good.
Always a pleasure to have you. I always still go back to our other episodes because they're so hilarious. They're
Yeah.
informative and
Always.
hilarious.
Always fun. Always fun with you.
Always a good time.
I know.
So really. And so one of the things that we talked on this platform before from your physical fitness expertise, just a reminder to our viewers that you are a fitness instructor. We also may have mentioned also your artistic side as well as a music producer, singer, songwriter. We're going to get into that a little bit more. But there's something else about you that a lot of our viewers may not necessarily know. So tell us, tell us first, where exactly are you right now?
Well, I am right now. I am at the lovely I always say the lovely because it definitely is a lovely place. I'm at the lovely Venus and Bells. It is a dominatrix and photography studio here in the LA area. And this is where we shoot our podcast, which is a new podcast that we've been doing for a year now. And it's the Elevate and Dominate podcast. And I'm really proud of it. It's a place where I can really authentically be myself and explore the kinkier side of myself and, erase the stigma that I thought that kinks had and fetishes had and all of that. I have a newfound respect for people who are really authentically themselves, and I'm living that journey. And I really am in a place where I thought I would be like, oh my God. And I'm so comfortable and with some really good, authentic people. So I'm really happy about that.
Oh, that is amazing. And I agree with you. I'm all for people just really understanding who we are in this journey called life and
Yes.
and being that person unapologetically. Now, you are in a space that has been pretty much very taboo in our culture, right?
Yeah.
So why was this particular journey important to you?
Well, you know what? I was experiencing emptiness syndrome, and I also was experiencing a loneliness that I really couldn't explain. And then also a feeling of being lost. You know what I mean? And when my son had left and went off to the Navy, and my daughter's growing up, and I was just like growing into another version of myself, which is also a menopause area where I was perimenopausal, and I really was
Mhm.
just trying to understand myself. and really not really understanding what was going on. And I had a good friend of mine who was doing the podcast with me, who was a former dominatrix at the time. And she would always talk about it and everything. And I was very candid about being a phone sex operator when I was younger. And so it wasn't really far-fetched for me. And then being a trainer, you learn that it's an interaction between people. You know what I mean? And it's a fair exchange between people. And it's not what I thought it was. I really thought that it was sex. I did. I thought that this was a place where it was just like a bunch of raunchy sex going on, and
I
like,
think most people do, though.
yeah.
So help us dispel those myths. What really is it?
Honestly, this is a space where people can explore fantasy, fetish, desire, um, and things that may have been taboo, but they are in their minds and in their heads and something they want to explore. And I really I found a newfound respect for people because it's a consent in which I haven't found in the vanilla world. So the consent in this world is negotiated. It's spoken about up front. You know what the scene is going to be. You know exactly what you're walking into. And the expression is it's a caring situation. There's aftercare. You don't leave a person without hugging them and talking to them and making sure they're back in the space of feeling good about themselves. It's literally like a training session. It's like a training session. It's an intimate training session, but there are some things that now there are areas that I don't touch. I'm telling you what I do. But what I do, there are areas that are their sex, but not on my behalf. I'm not having sex with the person, okay? But sometimes people have a lot of things in their mind that they want to explore, and they can't talk to their husbands or their wives. And honestly, they have a consenting conversation with their husband and wife and say, hey, I need to explore this side of myself. And so they come here and they have a conversation with the dom, and they explore those fantasies in a safe setting with people who know what they're doing. Okay.
Got it.
And whether that be in a sensual aspect, an impact aspect, like impact play where you see whipping and stuff like that. There's sensuality, there's scratching, there's rubbing, there's whispering, there's cuddling, there's hugging, there's tickling. It's not all pain and blood and death, and you know what I mean? What we see on the outside, it's not that at all. It's not.
What is it about how we are lacking in society that make these places necessary? Where have we gone wrong societally that creates a demand for places like this?
I feel like we've demonized intimacy and sexuality in a way that it makes people feel bad when they think of something sexual. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you've ever experienced, like, at a younger age, you watch a porn and then you get to a point, you're like, oh, I throw this away. I'm doing something bad.
The shame of it all.
Shame of feeling like I want to be touched in a certain way, or the shame of being like, I just want somebody, like, there's men that want to be dressed up as women. And that might sound crazy, but these are executives that are running Fortune 500 companies, and they're always in charge. And so they come here and they want to experience what a woman would feel like. And at first I was like, that's wild. But then when I met certain people, it's like, these are regular people. They're not crazy. There's nothing like that. It's not that at all. And you have a consenting conversation with the person, and they're saying, and they say, these are the reasons why, I want to talk about, this is why I want to explore my feminine side. I work all day and I never get a chance to be humble, and I want to pamper a woman. I want a goddess. You're a goddess to me. And this is something that I've never really experienced in my life. And I know I've always had like certain kinks, sexually. And
Mhm.
and then in relationships, it just didn't, it wasn't a safe place for me to say, hey, I have that type, I want that type of thing,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
couldn't say it. But now I feel, after being in this world, I can have a fully consenting conversation with someone about what we're about to step into, whether it be a sexual encounter with my partner, or
Gotcha.
with a person that I'm about to have a scene with.
Gotcha. And what it sounds like I hear you're saying is that there it seems to be two aspects of it, right? The fact that as a society we may be lacking the ability to communicate our sexual desires, and there has never really been comfortable spaces or safe spaces for us to do that. And
Right.
so oftentimes there is a labeling or even an internal labeling, it doesn't even have to be someone else doing it,
Right.
of shame or embarrassment or just feeling uncomfortable
Yes.
because there hasn't been that safe space. And then
Yeah.
what it sounds like I hear you saying also, for the example that you gave, which was very helpful to get some clarity on it, those who may be living a certain lifestyle where there is, for lack of a better word, a more masculine heavy environment,
Hmm.
that they lack the balance of the nurturing aspect of what's typically considered to be more feminine energy. And so
Yes.
you're desiring to be able to thrive a little bit more in that feminine energy side, just simply because their life on a daily basis is so unbalanced. And so
Yes.
there's a certain level of escapism, um,
Yes.
to try to, in an attempt to rebalance a very unbalanced life. And that
Yeah.
goes to, that goes, we can go on a whole different conversation with that.
I love how
Just
you squared that up. That was so perfect. That's you just really put that puzzle together so eloquently. I love that.
I'm just listening to you. But one of the things that people get into is fetishes, right? You used two words, you said fantasy and then you said fetish. Is there a distinction between the two? Are fetishes fantasy? Is there some type of distinguishing factor between the
Well, I
two?
think a fantasy is it's the desire for something, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also placed on an object, a, an event, because there's certain different events that people have fetishes for too. Like
Okay.
I'll explain that later.
Yes, please do. I'm like an event. You threw that curveball.
Event,
I was
well,
waiting with the
like
object.
like a kidnapping,
Oh, like
like some
that. I
people
see.
want to
I
be
see.
kidnapped, or they want
I
to
see.
be, you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
there's a certain scene that they're craving, that they want to experience. And so fetishes, they have foot fetish. Okay,
Hmm.
so that's
Hmm.
something placed on an object. And then you have fantasies where you may have someone that says they want to have, you have cup holding. Have you heard of that? The fantasy of like a couple having sex or having an intimate act and someone watching.
Oh, what term are you using for that?
It's called cuckolding.
Oh, I didn't listen. I didn't know there was a term, but I know what you're
I'm
describing.
learning too, girl. I'm learning too. So, but that's a
Uh-huh.
scene, that's a desirable fantasy of people to
Yes,
have,
yes.
the intimacy, not, and that's not necessarily a menage a trois. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That's not, there's no sex involved in this
There's no
situation.
sex involved. It
There's
is
no sex.
okay.
It's
Yes.
a sensual intimacy, or you're showing them how to please the partner with impact items, like
Yeah, yeah.
whips, or, you know what I mean? So there
Yeah,
is no
there
sex.
there is a current celebrity who's in trouble for potentially doing that, who shall remain nameless, but that is an example of
But you know what?
exactly.
I have a thought about that.
Uh-huh.
What if that person was just able to be like upfront from the start and not
Right.
hide about who they are? That's why I'm like, I'm not afraid to talk about my kinks or anything, because I never want anybody to hold anything over my head about how I'm feeling sexually. Like, what
Right.
is wrong? Now I can't say whoever that person is was right and what they
Right.
did and
Right.
all the stuff they did,
Mm-hmm.
but the
Mm-hmm.
fact that they had to hide that, You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
they
spend
could
so much effort in
authentically,
hiding, spend so much, and
right.
it became destructive to other people, right? Because you then utilize your power to force other, potentially allegedly force other folks to participate
Hmm.
because you are not in an environment where you feel accepted, and so you
Right. And you
create that
can't be
exception.
authentically yourself.
Yes, so you create it. You create that pseudo safe space through power and money, and then it leads to just destruction of other people's lives. So that goes to say, to your point of how potentially destructive not being yourself is. You're going to state the elephant in the room. You are a Black woman. You identify as a Black woman. Am I
Yes.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And the reason I'm bringing that out is because historically, because we're God's greatest beautiful beings on this planet Earth,
Yeah.
historically, Black women have been considered to be a fetish. Have you ever been confronted by someone who has a fetish for Black women and disclosed that to you?
Here, yes. In this world, yes.
Uh-huh.
um,
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about your being, the way you are created, the way you are shaped, the melanin of your skin, the shape of your body is a fetish for someone else?
I don't see it. I feel like why we are goddesses. And I think at first it was very hard for me to accept that I am a beautiful woman. I am a beautiful Black woman. And I don't feel like there's anything wrong with anyone telling you that. Now, there could be, there have been situations to where they have fantasies that are race play fantasies.
That I was going to get to that. Now go right ahead, because that's where I was going.
Yeah, I don't do that. I
Okay.
don't do that. I'm not going to participate in any race play activities at all.
Do
But yes,
people fetishize about slavery?
yes, they do. But I've never had anyone that asked me to do any slavery things. They usually will race play. They'll ask me to call them derogatory things.
Okay.
And
Okay.
just because I don't want to be involved in it, and I don't want you to eventually turn around and be like, all right,
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I'm saying? Like, well, I'm not going to do that. I just say no. I don't do race play at all.
Is having a fetish healthy?
I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy. I don't think there's anything unhealthy about having a fetish. Now, if you are overdoing it, or you're
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? If you are over consuming, if you are over purchasing. Now, if you just purchasing foot videos, then fine. But if you're walking around and touching on people's feet, not in a consenting situation, now that's an unwanted foot fetish. You know what I mean? But if you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, I think in this world, like if you have the fetish, you could go online. People know where to go buy feet pictures, and they know where to go if that's what their fetish is. But once you start going beyond the boundary of consent,
Mm-hmm.
that's not healthy.
But what about the race play? Are those healthy? Like, are people playing out mental health or emotionally or psychological traumas through their fetishes? And
Well, you know what? I'm gonna tell you this. What I'm learning is that some fetishes are connected to, or a lot of them are connected to something that you've experienced early on in your life
mm,
in some type of way. It's not just something that you pick up. You know what I mean? Like, I like feet. It's something that happened to you. There was something that not necessarily bad,
mhm,
you know, but most of the time it's connected to something that happened in your life. And sometimes we have like mommy doming. So that's like a
mhm,
fetish, you wanting someone to act like your mommy or treat you like a baby. But that person probably didn't have a childhood in which they had a nurturing mother or had that type of love. And so now they're in a place where they feel that void. So they come and get that void filled in
mhm.
this space. And so there's so many different aspects. I couldn't really say that a fetish is good or bad, you know? I
Yeah.
think it just depends on the person and how you're demonstrating and sharing your fetish. You know what I mean? Like if you're doing things that are not politically correct, or you're doing things that are just, not societally correct, then not cool.
Is the goal of these types of communities to just act out the fetish or the fantasy, or is there some type of process where the person is then able to get to the point where you were mentioning, where now you feel like you have evolved through this process and now you can very openly and freely communicate your desires with either partner or whomever? Is that the goal and intention of these experiences?
We went into greater depths on the discussion of what the Dom community is like, and also questioned whether or not it is possible to distinguish if you are someone's fetish. On our next episode, be sure to catch that at our next posting. We leave you today with the words of spoken word poet, Grammy-nominated Queen Sheba.
This entire lifestyle is evolving. There's so many terms to learn and so many just it's so much going on. It's a lot. It's a lot, because I feel like I'm just barely touching on the terms and understanding the distinctions. So it's an evolution for everyone. So I don't want anyone to feel shame that they don't understand something. Certainly if you want to explore and at least learn something about this, or learn more about this lifestyle, or these types of communities, then hop on over to
the Elevate and Dominate podcast.
And where can they find you?
You can find us on YouTube right now. We have some episodes, but we are now going to a subscription only process. Ooh. So we are going to be dropping our audio only on Spotify and other podcast platforms. But if you would like to see us, you must subscribe. So you're going to have to go on to our Patreon, and you can subscribe on Spotify now and make some tributes. We're dropping dominate.com on February 16th. So, you can go there and get more information, because I really think, for me, my aspect, because we all three are going to have our sections, but I want to erase some of the stigma for Black women. And I really want to come in and explore their kinks and really see how therapeutic this could be, to be authentic and consenting in a relationship of intimacy, Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's really important. So that's a part of the thing that I'm doing as I move forward in this life,
I hear that. I love that we're creating all these diversity of safe spaces, because these safe spaces never existed before, and people do have questions, and people do have curiosity, right? And so you don't want their questions and curiosity to be in the hands of someone that will manipulate and take advantage of them. So I love creating safe spaces where we can have these healthy dialogues. So thank you so much, Kawana OGD Lewis. I am Dr. T, the hand behind the handle of Healthy Bump Club right here on YouTube, and also the hand behind the handle of healthybump.club on Instagram. Listen, I know I learned a lot. I know you're going to learn a lot. Share what you learned in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And we thank you guys for watching. And we see you guys when? Next episode.
Securing my position, we clasp the fleshy round of my bottom. Each connection, a promise to liberate our people. A promise to liberate our country. A promise to liberate ourselves, nation building. Leading forward, I tickle his ear with my promise to raise a generation for him. Raise them between my thighs and on my nipples. Give our children names of the ghetto, untranslatable in other languages, to hide them from the officials that will look for us. Our love is the energy that will harvest entire third world countries. He mumbles in his sleep, plans to marry, while conscious he denies it. Insecure about his position in my life, I told him it would take him 9 seasons to convince him that nothing that came before us mattered. One was abusive and the others were fools, and no one will be half the man he'll teach our son to be. I listen to Lettucey while making scrapbooks out of potato paper. He listens to Ludacris while playing PlayStation. a room, run a bath, and light candles for aromatherapy. Slipping between the secrets of the bubbles, tempted to please myself, I decide to wait patiently. The soft of my fingertips could never compare to the perfect placement of his tongue, tracing out the letters of our daughter's name. The 10 gods I'll call on when I try to refrain. Soulmates, we are the same warrior. We just don't walk the same. I don't know if I'll need bigger shoes or he'll need smaller feet, as long as we march for freedom simultaneously.